Recording in progress.
Or you don't think that's necessary?
I would say 5 regular members and 1 alternate present.
That would be the official statement to make.
I'm here for you.
We are-
Regular,
We're
What
good
did
to
you
go,
wanna say?
DJ.
I'm here for you.
this is all the regular stuff. All right, everybody, we'll get this started. It is 1:33, and I call the February 14th, 2024 meeting of the Area Board of Zoning Appeals to order. Today, we have 5 regular members, 1 alternate member, and 1 member on Zoom. If you feel your petition, well, everybody's here. We will first ask for the public comment from those sitting in the chambers, then call on the members of the public attending remotely. If a member of the public attending remotely wishes to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting, they should indicate this by using the raise hand function in Zoom and/or by messaging the host in the chat function. Please clearly state your name, address for the record. Board members, please state your name please state your name when making a motion and a second. Please silence your cell phone so you do not disturb the meeting. And Shelley, can we please have a roll call?
Mr. Byers,
Present.
Mr. Tavernier,
Here.
Mr. Velman,
Here?
Mr. Devon,
Here?
Mr. Ritzma,
Here.
Mr. Roush,
Here.
Mr. Schaefer,
Here.
all members present.
We'll just note for the record that member Bob Hawley is absent and Adam Devon as alternate is here in his place.
You didn't tell me to say that.
Petition number 1, 51931 Portage Road. Owner, Emily Marie Morin. Requested action. Variance number 1 from section 154.378 to allow a 6-foot tall freestanding sign where a maximum of 4 foot is permitted. Variance number 2 from section 154.378 to allow a 32 square feet freestanding sign where a maximum of 2 square feet is permitted. And variance number 3 from section 154.372 sub F2 to allow a freestanding sign to have a front yard east setback of 3 foot where 10 feet is required for a permitted home occupation. Zoning R Single Family District, County.
Good afternoon, Faryal Sharif, Area Plan Commission staff. This petition is concerning a sign that was erected at this property off Portage and Brick Road in German Township. The property is zoned R Single Family. Most of the surrounding properties are also zoned R Single Family, with some zoned in the city of South Bend. The petitioner stated that they use the property for personal office purposes for their business, which is a permitted home occupation. They erected this sign outside the property, which was logged as a zoning violation. Property owners who use their residence for a residential home occupation can have a freestanding sign, but it is limited to no more than 4 feet in height and 2 square feet in size. Permits are still necessary for these signs. The petitioner would like to keep the sign's height and square footage as is. Freestanding signs must also be set back 10 feet from the front property line. The right-of-way here at Portage Road is around 60 foot wide, so it does appear the sign is on the property line or in the right-of-way. The petitioner has indicated they'd be willing to move it back. This is looking south on Portage Road toward the intersection of Brick and Portage. I will note now that the church in this picture is a permitted non-residential use in the R Single Family District. That does allow them to have a sign with a maximum of 32 square feet and 6 feet in height. Here's looking north on Portage. This is directly across the street, a single-family home. So there are other signs on this section of Portage Road nearby to the property. There is the church I mentioned earlier, and the South Bend Clinic Monument sign is at the corner of Brick and Portage and located in the city of South Bend. Farther north down Portage is the German Township Fire Station. These particular signs are permitted by either being legally non-conforming or having permits that indicate they are meeting the ordinance by right. Here is the site plan the petitioner provided. They did add some details. Their sign is 6 feet tall, and the dimensions of the sign are 4 by 8, making it 32 square feet. So the variance they're seeking is to keep the sign in its current size and height. As I mentioned, the petitioner did indicate they would be willing to move it back some from the property line. So the variance is currently advertised as 3 foot setback from the front property line, where 10 foot is required. Staff is recommending denial of the variance. First, we find the sign could have an adverse impact on the welfare of the community. There are other signs in the immediate area for permitted non-residential uses, such as the fire station and the church. However, due to its size and placement of this sign, it is much more visible to drivers on Portage Road and is not in character with what is currently on the property. Allowing this type of sign could reduce the residential quality of the area adjacent. This is mostly a residentially zoned area with single-family homes. The sign is much larger than typical signs for home occupations and is more in line with an advertising sign, which is not permitted in the residential district. Finally, the strict application would not create practical difficulties. The sign could be moved back 10 feet and still be visible and identifiable. They could still maintain a sign on the property, as the ordinance does allow for them to have one sign. They would just need to reduce the size and height and move it back. I can now take any questions from the board.
That is her primary residence? Is that,
I believe so.
Go ahead, sir.
No, go ahead. Sure.
Yeah.
For what was stated by Shelley in the description, it says to allow 6 feet, but on, to allow 6 feet tall freestanding sign, where max is 4 permitted, and then 32 square feet, where 2 square feet is permitted. On the site plan that was submitted, there's notes at the bottom here that says dimensions of the sign is 4 feet tall by 8 feet wide, equaling 36 square feet.
Yeah.
That's, I guess, that difference.
Yeah, I mean, I went out and measured it. It seems to be 32 square feet, 4 by 8.
The sign.
Yes.
You measure, so it's not actually 6 feet tall.
Oh, so the way we measure signs, we would measure from the base of the ground to the top, but the square footage of the sign, we would just include the face. Is that
The
correct?
face.
Yes, the face.
Okay.
Yeah. So it has to do with, in our ordinance, how we measure signs.
Thank
So moving it back the 10 feet, it still has to be 2 square feet.
Exactly.
All right, anybody else got anything?
No, sir.
No? All right. Is the petitioner present? If you got anything to add to the petition, you can come up here and speak in your name and address, and you got 10 minutes. If you're gonna both speak, I need both your names and addresses, please. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Emily Morin, 51931 Portage Road. This is Calvin Fisher. He also resides at my address, 51931 Portage Road. He is going to be my person talking for me today.
Well, this sign, the advertising that we do, this gets me probably at least 50% of my calls on all the advertising, and I spend quite a bit on advertising per year. Last year was probably 15,000, which is quite a bit for a small business that I run, like, for me. So with where it's positioned, I mean, I really don't see how it's interfering with anything. If there's any way we'd like to keep it, if I need to move it back some, I will. So I guess that's all we got with it.
Okay? You guys got any questions?
Yeah, I got one. Since it says you're in the construction business, wouldn't you have known to get a permit to put it up first?
Be honest, it never dawned on me to even need one being out of the county or out of the city. We're on the county line there. I assumed that I could put a sign in my yard.
But you never looked into it?
No, it's first-time home buyers. I've rented all my life, and this was our first house that we got together, and I apologize, I did not know all the rules to be following them. I want to be compliant, And just didn't realize that it wasn't permitted.
Since this is, you say you have a home business based out of this residence, which is perfectly acceptable, do you bring potential clients to the home then to entertain them or do anything with them?
No, I have an office in Niles,
Okay.
1990 South 11th Street in Niles there. I got an office that I would take, that's where most of my materials and trucks and trailers set.
And so then, because of the sign, have you had people stop by the home then as well too and try and talk to you about any opportunities?
I've had maybe one or two stop there, mostly just calls.
Is one of your goals to bring people to that location, to attract them to get there?
No, not to bring them to my house. I'm just trying to attract attention and calls.
Okay. Because if you look at the surrounding areas, the staff noted that there's a church there, there's also a South Bend Clinic there, and they have signs of this magnitude as well too, but they're a destination. Usually signs of this size, you're trying to attract people to come to you. An advertisement that would just want to be advertising your business, I would think would be something different, whereas a sign, to me, designates there's a business there. There's something going on in that facility that would draw people to that location. So it might be sending a mixed message, I guess.
What's the address of your business? Is this the address that's on file, or is your Niles address?
It should
the
be
one that's on file?
1990 South 11th Street in Niles.
Okay.
It did used to be 51931 Portage Road. 2 years ago, I got the office and changed it, the business address.
You got anything else? Anything? No?
For staff.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll open this up to the public. Is there anybody who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. Need your name and address, sir, and you got 5 minutes.
David Lazinski, 51815 Portage Road. I live approximately 3 houses north of where the sign is, and as a neighbor, I have no issue with the sign being there.
Okay, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right, thank you.
Well, and the fact, like I say, you got a sign across the street at the church, you've got the South Bend Clinic there, so it's not like it's out of place sitting there.
Understand. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. All right, seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none. Is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none, public portion is now closed. You guys got any questions?
I guess I would just comment, Adam Devon, to me, I think, like you brought up, you're advertising a place of, to me, it looks like you're advertising a place of business. So if you want to keep a sign of that size, you would generally want to rezone it to like an office buffer and use it as that at that particular location. Otherwise, it's no different than being in any other residential neighborhood and having a large sign, which nobody's going to want, which is why the ordinance is there. So I think I'd be against this variance, and maybe recommend that if that's going to be where you're living, maybe use that as an office buffer or change the rezoning on that. But
Okay. Anybody else? I'll take a motion.
Would this be, staff, would this be considered now an off-premise sign? And does that change anything if so?
We were just discussing that. I'm not sure if he would then need a different variance to allow an off-premise sign, because off-premise signs are not permitted, again, in our single-family district.
Is that because the actual business location is in Niles, not at the house now? Is that the reason?
When I spoke to the petitioner, it seemed to me that he had an office location there, and we were then calling it a home occupation.
Gotcha.
But Joe, as you found out, he doesn't actually bring clients to that house, and it's more strictly just for living, when his
Yeah.
actual business is in Niles, but he's advertising that business in Niles.
Right.
You could still have two office locations, though. It's not
Well, sure.
There's nothing wrong with that.
That's common.
And just for clarification, because I've slept since our last meeting, so this variance would follow the house itself, correct? If the petitioner ever moved, there's anyone that moves in this house after the fact would also be allowed to have a sign of this magnitude regardless of what it says on the sign, right?
That's correct.
Okay. With that being said, while I appreciate the petitioner's wish to, Portage Road is a desirable road. It's got a lot of action on there. I used to live right there at the corner myself in Fieldgate a long time ago. There's a lot of traffic goes down that road, but there are other signs can be put there, so I would make a motion to deny the petition as requested. Joe Vellum.
Adam Devon, second.
Second.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Vellman?
Yes.
Mr. Devon?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes. Based on testimony presented here today, after careful consideration, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals denies your variance and will issue written finding of the facts. Thank you.
Petition number 2, 56352 Peppermint Road. Owner Alejandro Garcilaso. Requested action, variance from section 154.070, sub C2A1, to allow for a attached accessory structure area of 2,318 square feet, where a maximum of 1,195 square feet is permitted. Zoning R Single Family District, County.
Good afternoon. This is Carl Brown Grimm, Area Plan Commission staff. The subject property is located north of State Road 2 in a residential area across from the IBEW structure on Peppermint Road. The petitioner is looking to legalize an attached addition to the home that was red tagged at the end of November of 2023. This one's a little different to similar cases that you've seen before. The petitioner was in the process of renovating their attached garage to add additional living space on top of the attached garage connected to the home. This is a permitted addition. But in the process, they received a complaint for not pulling a permit for that addition. And when the building department went out to investigate it, they found this addition in the back that was built previously without a permit as well. This garage structure is larger than what is permitted by the ordinance based on the size of the ground floor of the primary structure due to the fact that it's attached. In this case, the permitted maximum would be 1,155 square feet. There's Peppermint Road looking north and looking south towards State Road 2. Here's the submitted site plan showing the current size of the house and interior porch, as well as those two attached structures, the garage being 29 by 22. It's a little hard to see. And the addition in question here is 30 by 56. Staff does recommend approval of the requested variance. Looking at our state law criteria, we find that approval of this variance will not be injurious to the public. According to the historic aerials, this addition was built sometime between 2011 and 2013, so about 10 years ago. The footprint of the structures on the property have existed in the same manner since that time, and the nature of the new construction being located above the existing attached garage will not increase the nonconformity of these buildings. Similarly, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property will remain unchanged by approval of this variance. Again, the petitioner is asking for a variance from the allowed attached accessory area standard, and any impact that this would have had on the surrounding property values would have already occurred in 2011 when the building was constructed. Additionally, the height and size of this addition is not wholly out of character with the surrounding area. You typically see those L-shaped homes around, and again, there are some non-residential uses located nearby. Finally, staff does find there to be practical difficulties in this case. Because of the size of the property and the amount of square footage the petitioner does have, the strict application would force the petitioner to remove that attached addition because it could be permitted as a detached accessory structure. Based on the residential nature of the permitted addition to the portion above the garage, this could force the petitioner to separate the two, and which would create two different living structures on one property, which is a further departure from the zoning ordinance, and staff finds this variance to be preferable to that potential situation. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them now.
So the addition is living quarters, not, or is it garage? What is
Okay,
it?
so the addition that is happening recently in 2023 is living area. Directly above, if you see the, let me find the site plan. Directly above the attached garage area. This is permitted by the ordinance.
Right.
In 2011, they had built that rear addition. I believe it's just accessory storage, which would not have been permitted by the zoning ordinance, and that's what the variance is about today.
Okay. But the addition was permitted. It was that wasn't permitted. Right?
But both were done without a permit initially,
Right.
so that's what triggered the whole.
Gotcha.
This upper addition was started without a permit?
That was the complaint that drew the building department out there, and they red tagged both structures.
Carl, was there anything additional with regard to the complaint or what the building department found that could be viewed as a problem?
Not to my knowledge. It was just red tagged for not pulling the permit.
All right, you guys got anything else?
No, sir.
All right, is the petitioner present? Name and address, and you got 10 minutes. If you're gonna both speak, I need both your names and addresses, please.
Good afternoon. Alejandro Garcilaso, 56352 Peppermint Road.
Maria Berlin Espino, 56352 Peppermint Road. And he's gonna do this talk.
The whole reason we built the barn back there, I wasn't aware of the whole permit out in the county until we figured out that we needed permits for everything, and we're going through that process. So we apologize. We had a leak on the roof, was it 2 years ago? 2 years ago, and that's when we started the project on top of the garage. And I had the material, and but I wasn't aware about the whole permit deal. But now we know. We apologize. I apologize. What's that?
The barn.
And yeah, the barn. That's just where I keep all the. I mean, that's part of life. We didn't see anything wrong with what we're doing because a lot of our neighbors around the surrounding area they're doing the same thing, or they did the same thing. We have the electrical union across the street that built a whole. I mean, they built a whole complex there also, and I mean, we don't have everything's good there. So that's what we're just trying to go forward and get the permits and make this right.
Okay.
Are you guys doing the work yourself? Are you hiring a contractor, or is that, I guess, just curious on that?
We are doing it ourselves.
Any kind of work that you're doing on your property, I mean, you need to get a permit for.
Yes.
Even if you're remodeling on the inside, I mean, it needs to be permitted.
So listen, I feel what you're going through here, right? So long story short, I stood right where you're at probably, 5 years ago, right? I did something, thought I was within bounds and found out that I needed a variance, came here, stood right there and just got roasted, right? Ignorance is not an excuse, this and that, and just like Adam said, right? Anything that happens, I understand that you live in the property and that you own the property, but listen, you gotta make some phone calls before you do some stuff, because it's really hard for people to accept the I didn't know anymore, right?
Correct.
So I understand what you're going through. I got a couple questions. What state of the construction are you in or were you in when you got red tagged?
Just as it sits right now,
So-
we haven't touched it.
Okay, so is the interior done?
It's pretty much done.
So you got red tagged basically for the construction, maybe because it wasn't finished outside?
It was really cold. We started the project in March of last year. And we didn't have time to finish it.
Okay, so you got red tagged and you stopped all construction, interior and exterior?
Yes.
Okay. And then is there stone, is this brick that's on the front here, is that carrying all the way up and around the side? I don't know what this foam board is for, like, what's the outside gonna look like?
We took the garage, we basically just added upstairs,
No, I
and
understand
connected
what you
it.
did. What, is the brick that's on the bottom there, is that gonna carry all the way up to the soffit?
We put the, what do you mean? I'm sorry, why is that insulation or the,
What's the face of the addition going to look like?
it's going to be, stucco.
It's stucco?
Yes.
So not brick, okay.
Correct. We're going to leave the half brick and stucco. Where the new addition is, it's going to be stucco.
So here's the $1,000,000 question everybody's thinking, right?
Yes.
Did you do the addition back in 2011 that wasn't permitted?
The barn was done 2011.
Did you do that?
Yes,
You
yes,
did
it
that
was,
without a permit?
I'm sorry?
You did this 56 by 30 addition on the back of the house without a permit back in 2011?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. You guys got anything else? No? All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. All right, we'll open this up to the public. Is there anybody who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. Name and address, sir, and you'll have 5 minutes, please.
My name is David Lindholm. I have lived at 56330 Peppermint Road since 1976. And my neighbors were relatives of mine at that time. And we were very happy when these people moved in. And they've been extremely good neighbors, very helpful to us. And I'm 80 years old now, so I don't do everything I used to do. And they're there to help at any time. So the construction that they've been working on is really very nice. The garage is larger than it was when my relatives were there. And they're making a place for the children to have a little more space to grow up in. And they're very honest people. And I hope that they get the variance they need. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none, is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition, please step forward. Seeing none, any on Zoom? Seeing none, public portion is now closed. You guys got anything else, or I'll take a motion?
Did the building department say anything about fines or anything like that for what not getting permits for any of those may be? Triple.
Usually it's triple fine. Although I have seen that on a recent complaint that they waive the triple fee if it's not done by a contractor. And we do see in our database here that it wasn't triple fee. So
It was or wasn't?
it's not checked, so it's not triple fee, as far as we can see.
So the building department's holding a contractor to a higher regard than just a homeowner at this point, I guess?
Can't talk for the building department what they do or don't do.
Sure, I got you.
I don't see an issue with the variance per se, but I was just curious if there's a penalty for not applying the permit, so.
Should be.
Yeah. I didn't know that. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is Joe Velman. While I agree, yes, ignorance is not an excuse for anyone. Ignorance is ignorance, unfortunately. And in this case, the petition in front of us, the accessory structure is in question, is not out of character with the rest of the neighborhood. You can see by just the number of outbuildings in this market and where that sits at. It's not a uncommon occurrence to have this being attached. I think it's helpful in this case personally. I'd rather see one large structure than multiple smaller structures. So in this case, I would make a motion to approve the variance as requested per the petition, subject to the staff notes.
Adam Devon, second.
We have a first and a second. Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Velman?
Yes.
Mr. Devon?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes, based on testimony presented here today, after careful consideration, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals grants your variance and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you.
Variance number 3, 54169 Tulip Road. Owner, Frederick S. Miller Trust, et al. Requested action, special use, mineral and material mining and hauling of sand, gravel, or other aggregate and the processing thereof per section 154.091 sub B 13 to permit a concrete batch plant, zoning A agricultural district, county.
Yes, good afternoon. This is Sean Klein.
Sean, before you
Oh,
proceed.
yeah, I apologize.
I'd like to ask for the board's approval to abstain from voting from this petition on the reasonings that I work for the Michigan Area Council of Governments. We provide community and economic development services. If you were present a couple months ago when we heard this case for a different location, I asked for a similar request that was approved. And so they're back here again. We are working with the town of New Carlisle. While it's not affected by the actual project, we're working with them developing a comprehensive plan, looking at, in their future or what possibilities could be. So I would like, as their client and still in development of this planning project, to abstain from voting, to eliminate any perceived conflicts of interest, even though I don't have any financial ties to the actual petitioner. It's just for my code of ethics as a planner, I just want to abstain from that perceived perception of a conflict of interest. So I ask for a board's approval to abstain from voting.
So we need a motion and a second, correct?
Yes, just so you know that this is a separate request from the recusing yourself under conflicts. The rules require that every board member who's not officially conflicted under the definition of conflict under your rules has to vote unless you guys excuse them from doing so. So that's why he's asking. So it would take somebody making a motion to let him do that and then a vote, which unfortunately has to be a roll call vote because Lance is on Zoom.
So it's just a motion to excuse Donnie from petition.
To excuse Donnie from voting on this petition.
Number 3.
Since Brandy's making it about me, I would like to make a motion, Lance Roush, that we allow Donnie to abstain from this vote.
Tom Byers, second.
We have a first and a second. Mr. Devon?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Velman?
Before I vote, does Donnie get to vote on this vote?
Well, yes, technically speaking, he would get to vote on this vote.
Yes.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
And because this is not under the rule that's about official conflicts, he doesn't have to leave the room.
I will. I will. Oh.
Apparently, he's voluntarily doing it, but he doesn't have to.
Because he has to come back for the other stuff, though, so he can't just leave.
He'll be back.
Okay,
Coffee break.
Good?
Government.
we're good.
All right.
Go ahead.
All right. Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. Just to remind you, this is a request for a special use, so you'll be making a recommendation to the county council. And it is a special use for, it's really kind of a broad special use that the zoning ordinance offers in the A agricultural district, R single family district, and in the I industrial district. It allows for mining and extraction of minerals and aggregates, also hauling and processing thereof. In this case, as with the petition in December, it's really the processing of the aggregate that the petitioner is interested in. The petition is the purpose of it is to establish a concrete batch plant on this property, wherein cement and other aggregates would be brought, stored, processed into concrete, which would then be shipped out to construction sites in the area. The previous petition by this petitioner that you heard in December, that was for a site that also had a Tulip Road address. This current site is about 1,800 feet northwest of that site. That site, the petition was ultimately withdrawn since it only had frontage on Edison Road. It really wasn't viable, given that that's not a truck route, so it wouldn't have permitted the truck traffic as the road infrastructure currently stands. So this one has road frontage on US 20, which would allow for that necessary truck traffic. The site that would be occupied by the batch plant is proposed to be in the northwest corner. You can see the area is zoned agricultural, and then once you get over to the west, you get some industrial zoning and uses. And as it's proposed to be in that northwest corner, we got a lot of shots of the property from there. This is looking towards the south, deeper into the parcel from around US 20. And then looking to the east, looking to the northeast across the street there. What's that? Yes, I'm usually too loud. Then looking to the west, again, looking straight to the west there. And then you see there's a street with some single-family homes over to the east, and then some single-family uses to the north across US 20. That's the view from Tulip Road. Here is the site plan. The petitioner is proposing to provide berms to the east, to the west, and to the north. To the north would be a 6-foot berm. They would also provide one evergreen per every, or 2 evergreens rather, per every 30 feet of that property line, resulting in the planting of 35 evergreens. To the east would be a 4-foot berm with 55 evergreens, again, 2 per every 30 feet of project area. And then to the west would be a 4-foot berm. And these are some other plants operated by the same manufacturer in the area. Staff is proposing the 5 written commitments that are shown on your screen right here. One being that the developer shall adhere to a berm and vegetation screening plan approved by staff, as you've seen. Also, the plant shall not access Tulip Road at all, so everything brought to the site and off the site associated with the concrete batch plant would have to use US 20, subject to NDOT approval. Truck traffic related to the special use will be limited to state routes, including US 20, and county roads that are designated as truck routes by the county engineer. I'll show you where those are in a moment. Again, material extraction and mining will be prohibited on the site. And the concrete plant operation would comply with all performance standards contained in section 154.073 of the St. Joseph County zoning ordinance. These deal with noise, vibration, toxic, noxious matter, odorous matter, heat, glare, and waste. The reason we want this as a written commitment is that it would not apply in the agricultural district, even for a special use. It's only applicable to business, commercial, and industrial uses. Or districts, rather, sorry. This map would show in green the county roads that would be permitted for the truck traffic. Turning to the 4 state law criteria, staff does find that the proposed use would not be injurious to public comfort, community moral standards, convenience, or general welfare. In that the concrete plant would need to adhere to all local, state, and federal regulations related to the storage of concrete ingredients and their processing. And again, there will be no on-site extraction per the written commitment, such that there will be no serious site remediation should local demand for concrete wane, such that the portable site could then be removed. We find that the proposed use would not injure or adversely affect the use of the adjacent area or property values therein. As a special use, they're required to provide at least a 50-foot setback from all property lines. Per the site plan provided, they're actually showing far more substantial setback lines. They're showing a 200-foot front setback from the front property line, 250 from the west property line, well over 900 feet from the east property line, and 1,700 feet from the south property line. Additionally, some of the written commitments that we're requesting would speak to preventing adverse effects on the use and value of neighboring properties, including the berm and vegetation screening plan, and those performance standards that we want to apply to the use. Third, we find that the proposed use is consistent with the character of the district in which it is located and the land use is authorized therein. Again, the property is zoned agricultural. There are numerous agricultural uses that require large storage buildings, storage of materials, processing that can lead to emissions of dust, noise, other adverse impacts that would be similar to this concrete plant. Finally, we find that the proposed use is compatible with the recommendations of the comprehensive plan, which really doesn't contemplate any specific uses at this property. However, the property is in close proximity to an area that's been designated by the 2002 comprehensive plan for industrial growth, and having another close supplier of concrete would facilitate that growth. So staff does recommend that this be sent to the county council with a favorable recommendation. But again, we want to make this subject to these 5 written commitments that you see on the screen. Other than that, if you have any questions for me, happy to try to answer them. And also the petitioner has a full presentation for you as well.
Go ahead. Any of these roads, like the ones that we've seen in the past, do any of these roads have to be brought up to a higher standard for all this truck traffic then?
So what's shown on the screen are already approved for truck traffic. So US 20, subject to NDOT approval, would be fine. And then it looks like they could come down Smilax to, or that's not Smilax. It is Smilax to Edison from there.
Other special uses that have come before this board have a limitation on them. I don't see any 3-year period, 5-year period, so this is an unlimited special use for the entire perpetuity of
Yeah,
this?
most of the special uses are. The conditional use for the caregiver home, that's the one that has the 3-year time limit on it. But generally, special uses aren't limited.
Okay. And staff doesn't see any reason to put any type of statute of time frame on this temporary use.
We really can't predict the demand for concrete. Also, we were assessing the site as to whether it's suitable for that special use, not whether it's suitable for that in a short time period, essentially. So,
But we don't know what the time period is.
assume indefinitely.
That's not short. And this may be more the petitioner's proposal to come up with, but has there been a traffic study in US 20 and the impact of what safety hazards there may be with this increased truck traffic for a temporary use concrete plant?
We can certainly see what they say.
Okay. That's all I got.
Good? Tom? Good. All right. Is the petitioner present? Name and address, please, and you got 10 minutes.
Jim Sellers, Kirk Concrete, 5909 Nimps Parkway, South Bend, 46628.
Thank you. Miranda Herbert, Irving Materials, 8032 Indiana State Road 9, Greenfield, Indiana.
Sherry Hine, 10478 North 900 East, New Carlisle, Indiana.
Thank you, Sean. Did a good job presenting there. Just to touch on a couple things, we are here again. We were here a couple months ago and had some challenges with the first parcel of land that we presented. We did withdraw that just due to, the county roads were not improved for truck traffic. And we felt not to move forward with that and seek another parcel of land that would be more suitable. So I think we've accomplished that with this parcel of land with the intent of, entering and exiting off of US 20. And just, somewhat of what we're going through is through the bid process, a couple of these projects. I've been in ready-mix concrete for 28 years locally, and so these are two of the biggest projects to hit the new Carlisle South Bend area. So it's substantial, and we just feel that it's a good idea to have supply for these construction projects. And so that's why we're here today to hopefully get that done. I have Miranda here as head of our construction group, so she can go through the PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, so we've already looked at the site plan. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. The location, 54169 Tulip Road, currently zone agriculture. We're asking for a special use to utilize for our portable plant for upcoming projects. We'll get into some of the commitments made. So obviously ingress and egress off of US Highway 20. So per the submitted site plan, we have setbacks of approximately 200 feet from the front of the property line, 250 feet from the west property line, and then over 900 feet from the east property line, and over 1,700 feet to the south property line. We have committed to putting in a 6-foot berm, which would be installed at the north end of the property line, and then 4-foot berms at the east and the west end with vegetation equaling about 90 trees. We've also committed, and this is pretty common at all our facilities, so all cementitious materials, aggregate and sand will be delivered and stored appropriately, and I'll get into that a little bit more into the production part of this slide. And then obviously the ready mix material will be produced within the concrete mixer truck. So how it works is obviously the product is stored and then brought up through a conveyor system and then put into our overhead bins and then dropped into the trucks and then mixed and left off site. These are our plant details for our portable plant. If we have any questions at the end regarding this structure, we can certainly talk about these, but this is just a general construction layout, what those portable plants look like, which is fairly common. Production details, a well will be utilized for water. So for every yard of concrete, we have about 30 gallons of water going into that. Like I stated before, so all cementitious material will be stored in silos. And then storage bins will be utilized for sand and aggregate. We also have a dust collector compartment within all of our plants. Those are properly maintained. We have a maintenance department, and our plant managers are trained to take care of those. So weekly maintenance, daily maintenance, checking in before production. All of our fixed and portable sites follow IDEM, so we have someone in-house, works on the environmental side, and works with our CURT group up north and all of our facilities in the state of Indiana. We're required to have air permits for all of our portable and fixed plants, and we are also required to follow stormwater management runoff requirements. So this site will also have a designated, like I said, environmental person who will cover the site and make sure we're in compliance, and then also an operations manager and a plant manager running the site. This is an overview. So the overview was for our Plymouth plant, and then there are two pictures that kind of hone in on what a portable plant would look like, or a facility or site would look like. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and let Sherry speak, and then we can get into any questions.
Okay. I have to follow notes, so I don't know. These are my notes. I am the daughter of Fred and Maud Miller. I'm executor of the trust. My father has passed away, and my mom is almost 90. Everyone here, everyone has a cell phone, but doesn't want to look at the big cell tower in the middle of the field. Everyone wants to travel all over the country, visiting places that we love so well, but no one wants to live by an interstate. The Indiana Toll Road divided the farmland in the 50s. This was devastating to the farmers as the ground was taken by eminent domain. Yet, it provided numerous jobs and efficient means to travel. We all have electric, but no one wants to live near the high lines and the towers that carry it. We all want fast internet, but don't want the fiber optic cables buried in our backyard. Most of us have an Amazon Prime membership and rely on next day shipping, but no one wants to live by the mile-wide Amazon facility. Everyone wants to build a new house and use concrete for the foundation, sidewalks, etc., but no one wants to live by a concrete plant. The harsh reality is that if we want these things, the means to have them must be located somewhere. And in the past 50 years, that somewhere has slowly become the east side of New Carlisle. CURT Concrete is an outstanding local business. They were bought by Irving Materials recently, but are still run by the same family. They are righteous people that have been in the concrete business for over 80 years. They are receiving no tax breaks. They are a union company with great benefits and give their employees fair treatment. The introduction of a CURT ready-mix plant into New Carlisle will bring more careers and will be an asset to our community. They will also be a good neighbor following EPA rules to protect our local environment. My great-grandfather, Frederick G. Miller, came to this country from Germany in 1854. He was 19. He was drawn to New Carlisle because of the railroads. These railroads still play an important part in all of our lives. Great-grandpa owned a sawmill and had contracts to supply the ties for the Lakeshore and Michigan Southern Railroad. This ran from Buffalo, New York to Chicago, and this was in the 1870s. A ready-mix concrete plant is not the beginning of the end of New Carlisle as we know it. Like any other town or city, as time has passed, New Carlisle has slowly industrialized. Easy Heat, 1951, Karis Reels, 1970, Carborundum, now Unifrax, is 1976. Iron Tech, now Cleveland Cliffs Tech and Coat, 1987. All these companies and several more have been created an important source of income for our community to live and thrive. The progress of an industrial park was already in the works before most of our close neighbors bought their homes. Larger corporations are now coming in, and there's a need for local resources to fuel this growth. Industrial expansion is inevitable, and my parents' land happens to be in the center of it. I understand why everyone loves to look out at an open farm field. This is where I grew up. Our family has farmed for decades. We have some wonderful neighbors. Unfortunately, the next generation will not be farming. This is just a little, and personally, my husband and I farm, not on this property, but I married a farmer because there's a lot of farmers in the area. But the cost to put out a crop has tripled in the last 3 years. The price per bushel when you sell hasn't changed. To put it into perspective, a farmer would need to be paid approximately $6 for a bushel of corn to break even. And now, to take a load to the local elevator, I didn't check what today's price was, $4. It's just insane. That's why the next generation is not going to farm. That's all I got to say.
got a
Sorry about
minute
this,
and a
but I
half.
forgot to address your question too. We have started the process on US 20, but I believe that's through NDOT, through the application process, if they would actually do a traffic study or not, is what I believe on that for that.
Jim, I got a question for you. So in our packet, there's an email that said, that Brad and I will also have a plan over the next couple weeks to introduce ourselves to the surrounding residents before the February 14th meeting. Did that happen? Did you have any kind of town hall or any kind of meeting or anything like that?
It wasn't a town hall, but Brad and I did, we walked Tulip and US 20, any residents that would border the property. And we met with 3 residents. Everybody else were not home or didn't answer their door, but we did leave a packet of information for them. Since that time, we did have, I believe, one resident call a council member, and I replied to that through an email. I did not get a response, but I tried to address that through an email. I know Brad has replied to a couple emails also of some questions if they were brought to us, but, you know, we welcome any of that. You know, if anybody has questions about how we operate, what our history is, we do welcome that to anybody here. We'd be glad to talk to them.
Can I ask what some of those questions were that you were asked?
I believe the one I dealt with the council member was just, I believe, just unsightly and just didn't want a ready-mix plant there. I think one of the issues Brad had to deal with was it was actually down the road on US 20, maybe a mile to the east, about safety concerns with I think there's a curve in US 20 of traffic. And then, I'm sorry, but I don't remember the other. Okay, so just more questions about the plant, water usage, that type of thing.
Okay. That's all I got. Thank you. Anybody else? No? Good? All right. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
DJ, if I could.
Good.
Go ahead, Lance, sorry.
Okay, yeah, it's okay. Jim, I know you guys have put a lot of time and effort into this, and thanks for going through all that. We all get it. Shelley, could you go back to the slide where it shows the green highlighted Smilax portion of Edison and Larison? And maybe all of you know exactly where the area is, where all the construction's going to happen, but honestly, from this view, I don't. Jim, could you give me an idea, give the board an idea of where the traffic's going to most likely go in and out of the plant, and what the endpoint will be? Just use the battery plant, for instance, for example for now.
Okay, so battery plant, we are pretty certain that Smith Ready Mix has been awarded that project. And I believe they would run from that Edison to Smilax and access, I'm sorry, but I can't remember the road to the west off of, Edison to Larison. And there's a county road off of Larison that goes into the battery plant to the west. Fillmore is what I'm being told here for that. The other project, they have a couple parcels of land. And so I believe phase 1 dirt's already being moved, and that would be off of just west of Larison on Edison. So for us to access that, we would be US 20 to Smilax to Edison west, and then we'd be able to access that property from Edison. I believe the other parcel of land would be south of State Road 2. And so it would be all the way for us, it would be US 20 to Smilax to Edison to Larison. And then we would be able to access that property from State Road 2.
Okay, so I assume, staying within our purview, IDEM or NDOT's going to have a lot to weigh in on acceleration lanes and turn lanes and shoulders and all that. But in essence, what you're saying is for the most part, loaded, you're assuming all right-hand turns, like out onto US 20 out of the plant, and then taking a right in a half mile on Smilax.
It'd actually be the opposite of that. We would be taking a left out of our property to access US 20, and then a left on Smilax, and then head south across the tracks and enter in the IEC.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Joe, you said you had something?
Yeah, how many, at the height of, if this plant was in operation, how many trucks a day would be going through, in and out of there, including the aggregate and everything coming in?
Okay, so that's a little hard to predict, but if, 6 to 8 trucks, and you could have upwards of, say, 5 or 6 cement tankers that might come in and unload, and then you'd have another, say, 25 to 30 loads of aggregate coming in and out. A lot of that is variable, and I'm being honest when I say this. It is a very sizable project. For us specific, it would depend on how much of the work that we land. We have not been awarded anything yet, but we're bidding on it. So it is kind of variable and hard to predict.
And what's your current closest plant to be able to service this area?
So South Bend, on right by the airport, on Bendix, and the scope and size of these two projects are such that I think I said this maybe at the council, but locally it's us, Smith, and Ozinga are already mixed companies locally. There's enough for all three, and still have it be a struggle potentially for us to keep up with that. So South Bend doesn't seem to be far, but when you're trying to utilize resources as your trucks and you're making turns and trying to deliver, an example, we provided to the power plant in New Carlisle. And so that was, at the time, a pretty sizable project. But to service that for some pours that we had to bring in, from South Bend, we had to bring close to 30 trucks just to service that one pour. So when you're closer, you're just able to service a lot better, less turns, less trucks, and that type of thing, so.
So going back to your calculation on number of trucks, that's an in and out for each one of those, so it could be 100 egress and egresses out of that location on a daily basis, realistically.
Potentially.
On a highly traveled road that, while it's not as bad as US or State Road 2, it's only 2 lanes, there's not great turn lanes, there's not great ingress and egress off of those. I see this as a great safety hazard. In fact, I would probably rather see you coming off Tulip than off of US 20, particularly if this was the spot it's supposed to be.
And just give a little on that, I mean, when we first kind of dove into this, as it sits right now, we cannot put a plant within the IEC. Okay, so that kind of, in the zoning, that kind of pushed us out into the residents. And so the first parcel of land, we had.
Please clarify that for me. The IEC stipulates that there cannot be a concrete plant in this location?
That's correct. So Smith Ready Mix is there, but they were there before there was, I don't want to speak out of turn. I mean, that might be for here, but I think it was zoned differently at that time, and now it's changed. So I guess hard knocks on the first one, with the county roads, they just weren't developed. So that was the major pushback, and Tulip is not a truck route. So that's what we're trying to accomplish here is coming in and out on US 20.
When are you planning on starting this, installing all of this? After, say everything gets approved and so on, what's your timeline for construction?
We would start immediately with the site plan. There would be no delay.
And then my earlier question on the backside is, what's the end game on this? When would you say this is gonna be done being a portable site and pack up and not need it any longer?
That's also hard to predict. These projects could be 3 to 5 years is what we're hearing. We don't have the full scope of what it is, but between the battery plant and this other project, it's so far close to 1,600 acres. So that's hard to answer.
Would you be willing to entertain a additional written commitment of this special exemption is only good for 6 years, and then you would be required to come back and re-up it again after 6 years to ensure you're a good neighbor and everything else going on? There weren't major accidents, all kinds of things that I have concerns about?
If we're, I would say we would definitely consider if we're allowed to re-up. You know, I mean, we've been out of the 3 ready-mix companies in this area, we have been the staple ready-mix company since 1927 in this city. And so, you know, we've been a very good partner, and we have a long history with the city of South Bend, with St. Joe County. And so, you know, I just have a lot of pride working here too myself, you know, but yeah, we would, we want to entertain this too as a possible long-term for us, as being part of this growth and part of New Carlisle. So for us, it's just to sit here and say that it's just a portable plant that we're going to put up, service a couple things and tear down. It's possible that we'd like to stay there longer than that.
Have you entertained other sites that might be more permanent?
That's a little difficult, just because of the zoning, and so we're trying to find that now. Or,
A permanent site someplace closer to New Carlisle?
yeah, so that's how we're viewing this.
Yeah, I certainly don't, forgive me, I don't mean to speak that, or intimate that I don't think Kurt's a good partner to South Bend or the surrounding communities. And I don't feel that a concrete plant is out of character for this area, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's farms that are gonna probably look, that do look currently the way this would look for a long time, but I guess my contention would be the safety aspect of concrete trucks are slow-moving vehicles moving on into a major 55-mile-an-hour highway multiple times a day, in addition to all the aggregate trucks, everything else like that. I'm kind of surprised we wouldn't have the forethought on figuring out a spot inside of a hugely opportunistic area of our county to figure out this would be a good spot to bring in these materials and have these things going on. So I'm a little surprised that the IEC was a little short-sighted in that. I guess that's my contention on that. The aspect of that would be, assume there's a cost savings being closer as well too, versus coming from the South Bend plant, which is favorable, so I don't get me wrong. I mean, lowering costs, helping you gain bids and all that kind of stuff certainly makes sense. And then the travel time to get the concrete there is also a part of that as well too, so.
And for us, it is, in all seriousness too, it is a resource management thing for us. You know, as it sits, these projects have come pretty fast. And so, you know, we're not in a position where we can just snap our fingers and say we want to add 15 ready-mix trucks to our fleet, and also the drivers that go along with that. And so, you know, it's daunting to try to service a project like this, or projects, and you're trying to manage the resources that you have. So, yeah, you know, and I really think it's going to be a long-term development in that area. You know, you have these two projects going on, but you're going to have housing, you're going to have a lot of things coming with this. So, yeah.
Okay, anything else? All right, thank you. All right, we'll open this up to the public. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. Any on Zoom? I can't see it, Shelley.
No.
No? All right. Is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. So everybody knows, I need your name, your address, and you will get 5 minutes. Please, Dan.
Good afternoon, board, staff. Dan Caruso, 305 Compton Street, New Carlisle. First off, I'd like to correct Donnie. The town of New Carlisle will be impacted by this. We drive on that road. As they just said, there's a speed issue. A concrete mixer pulling off of a field west of Tulip Road on the 20, where it's 55 to 60 miles an hour. Then coming down the Smilax Road, coming out of that field, they're coming across eastbound traffic, going into westbound traffic at just crawling rates where people are going 55 to 60. You come down to Smilax, where if you get more than 2 trucks waiting to turn there, there's no way to get around them on the right-hand side, on the shoulder, and things will line up there. Anybody who lives in the area understands the shredder, which the City Council of South Bend donated to us. The trucks line up there on Smilax Road, waiting to get into the shredder. So I can picture the concrete trucks turning and seeing the trucks lined up waiting to get into the shredder and saying, oh, I can go around them. And they'll go around them, and guess what? Just as they get to the tracks, down come the arms. Anybody who lives over there knows those trains can sit there for over an hour. I'm wondering if Kurt will be ready to, I don't know how long concrete can sit in a mixer before it's not usable, but I can see them lined up at the gate while the train sits there because the people on the train, the operators of the train, have hit their 8-hour limits and they're not allowed to move the train anymore. They got to wait for the new crew to come in, which is why that happens all the time. I don't know why it happens in New Carlisle. It happens all the time. It's a problem when these trucks are going to be in the middle of all the other trucks. We've got school buses. Again, thank you for recognizing the safety issue. Again, coming out of that field onto Highway 20, the school buses over there, it is a locally traveled road. It's a preferred road. I prefer driving on 20 when coming over this way because 2 is just a nightmare. I have to go down Timothy Road, and 2 and Timothy is just a nightmare. I use 20. A lot of other people use 20. This is going to be just absolutely the wrong place. There are a number of places that this plant could go. It could go on the northwest corner of Tulip and State Road 2. That is outside the overlay, and let me answer for Abby. They can't build within the IEC district because it's prohibited by the IEC overlay. They can't put a aggregate sand, gravel, mining type facility inside the overlay district. But I'm sorry, I made some notes here, see if I can get to them. Thank you. The water treatment plant, our sewage goes over to being processed over here off of, I guess that's Portage Road or down by the river, over this way. I don't know if anybody noticed, there's been 3 different breaks in that line running along that same area where they're going to run their berm coming out of the yard to turn on to US 20. There's been 3 repairs there just in the last week. Where some weight of some sort has broken those lines. I'm thinking like an 80,000-pound mixer 100 times a day. It's going to be pretty rough on that line. Again, I'm for the growth. I'm glad to see some growth happen. It's a little more than I want to see, but I'm for it. But there's a better location, and particularly you had the great location. I mean, you had the right idea last time, south of the tracks, where you're not messing with a train sitting there blocking your access. How many times before you say, oh, the heck with it, I'm going to go up and use one of these restricted roads to get in with my load because I don't want it hardened up in the drum. Again, I don't know how long it takes for that stuff to set up, but I'm thinking longer than it'll be not usable by the time they get it down to the plant. I think you got to come in from the south. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Good afternoon. My name is Deborah Durrell, 21677 Norton Road, South Bend. Thank you for hearing me today. This is a complicated issue, and it's going to be complicated to direct comments efficiently to this, so I appreciate the time that you're giving. I and several others have been working within this system for several years, and we are working more and more with the developers and the petitioners as we come to know the system and the people involved with that. But there is more than one system at work here. And that's where I would like to start to direct my comments, is that I am confused about what system is in operation here. And I don't mean just with this board, I mean with the entire approval process. Part of these hearings involve a lot of verbal questions and answers from the petitioners and the developers. And as I have been coming to these meetings over the several years, and also meeting with these people privately to, as they prefer to have private dialogue and private answers, those kinds of verbal comments frequently do not hold. And a lot of the votes that I see being given from people on these boards and commissions are based on those verbal comments. And so I very much appreciate when something is put in writing, the written commitments and that kind of thing. The terminology, I think, is very important. There are some terms that are being used here today and throughout that are vague, such things as the temporary term, the portable term. In my opinion, this is as permanent as any other business that locates in this area. We should stop using those terms and basing votes on special uses that this is a temporary or portable use. Also, the term not entirely inconsistent with large agricultural machinery and storage. That sounds like doublespeak to me. Not entirely inconsistent, what the heck does that even mean? Also, as I have been coming to these meetings, Smith Concrete is located in this area specifically because a few years ago, Kurt Concrete indicated they did not have the resources to put a plant here. So I'm wondering what has changed. Also, I do appreciate the fact that there is a berm. The screening is a very desirable aspect to include with this, but putting trees on a berm, I'm wondering how big those trees are, how close together, what kind of screening is that really going to provide for the homes? And it's going to be there long enough for those trees to mature, I assume. So how long is that? Also, the IEC overlay, several of us came to many hearings, and the comprehensive plan, we came to many meetings, long hours put into this, and then now we're starting to hear that some of that doesn't apply to this, that the core area is being expanded, the overlay is being expanded. The mitten that we were told, both verbally, privately, and I think publicly at one point, was not going to be logged. GM had no interest in bringing that down. All of a sudden, it was gone without any notice. The Nespajani ditch was not going to be moved. GM had no interest in moving the Nespajani ditch. It has been under consideration with the Army Corps and all the county people for now at least a year to move that ditch. So I live on a concrete truck approved road. And several years ago, I was being woken up multiple times in the wee hours of the morning from Kurt trucks driving down my road instead of Cleveland or going up Portage to the Niles Industrial Plant. And I'm telling you, this is a quality of life issue. You cannot say that this is not going to disturb the residents there for a long time. I was being woken up multiple times in the middle of the night with my windows and walls rattling. I don't know how people can live next to something like this. And a few years ago, I was at an area plan commission meeting where an industry going next to a home was rejected for this very reason.
Deborah,
I
I'm
hope-
sorry. Normally, I give you a heads up that you're running out of time, but I was making notes, so I
Yeah, yeah.
apologize. But yeah,
Okay.
you're out of, your 5
Okay.
minutes is up.
I guess I would just say in closing, please take seriously the comments. And if you base your vote on those, I hope that they hold true. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Jack Daly. I live at 217 West Michigan Street in New Carlisle. I want to make a couple of observations about the process. I've been here with some meetings of this particular group, but not as much as the other council and commissioner meetings over the course of the last 15, 20 years, in the course of the push to industrialize the western part of the county. I understand that the need for concrete to build the places, but I know that some time back, we were assured that the IEC activities would happen within the core area, the 3,000-acre core area, which we backed off and said, okay, we weren't, actually, it was put into the agreement that we would not make comments of a negative nature about anything that happened within that area. Since then, everything that has to do with that place has to be built outside of it. This I do not understand. If we sit here, and you folks, you fellas, make special variances, then perhaps IEC should get a special variance to make what it needs happen within the footprint that Bill sold us years ago. I don't understand that. I don't understand the process. There are so many questions that haven't been answered here that I don't see the wisdom of passing this ahead to the next step in the process without getting those answers. Where is the traffic study that really you should have in your hands before you make this decision? I'd like to comment on the overall process, then I'll get the heck out of the way. I stand opposed to this project. I stand opposed to this one, and I stand opposed to the next one as well. If it's so obviously joined at the hips to the IEC and yet still seeking to stake its claim outside the IEC's core area as originally outlined way back when. I stand opposed to outside moneyed interest deciding my way of life in New Carlisle is out of style with the times. Passed away, I believe. I stand opposed to my freedoms being forced to fit their forms rather than the opposite. So I have to admit, I hold no great hopes here. In fact, their profits will in all likelihood trump my future. I don't hold any illusions as to the outcomes that have come out of this building in the past. And I know recently one of our county commissioners, whose name escapes me, at least had the gumption, I guess you could call it that, to come right out and state that at times it was necessary for one part of the county to take the hit so that other parts of the county would benefit. We're not loving that, being the county sacrifice area. We haven't loved that for quite some time. So is this sour grapes on my part? Is this NIMBYism? Maybe, I don't know. But I subscribe to the notion that we all share the same backyard. And I think that those of us who shared the joys of scorched Canadian air last spring got a glimpse of that notion and how it could play out. Folks who understand where I'm coming from have had my number, pro or con, for a good 20 years. No surprises here. You see, the thing is, my thing is, it pains me to see the real wealth of this county treated so shabbily, to see awesome natural resources auctioned off for short-term profits for some and a permanent loss for the rest of us. I'm here to go on record one more time with one more body of the county authorities, as opposed to this push to industrialize Western St. Joe County. But if I don't want what you obviously do, then so be it. That's America. But when the children of today ask the questions of tomorrow, when they wonder what the heck we were thinking here, anyone interested enough to know will know we gave it our best shot. Onward through the fog, my friends.
Thanks, sir.
Tim Vanslager, 29417 US Highway 20. First thing I want to say is, like I said, the biggest issue out there, yeah, I don't want it in my front yard because it's literally my front yard. They have a setback of 200 feet. Yeah, that's me walking across the highway 200 feet and it's there. The safety concern, yes, it is the big issue. I've been out there 34 plus years. I've watched the traffic increase and over time, the majority of it has to deal with semis, people coming from South Bend, taking their children out to New Prairie schools, also then going back to work in South Bend, back and forth. So the traffic has increased. We have multiple school buses that travel that route, mornings and afternoons, down the side roads, everything out there. The bit, like I said, with the safety issue, where they're proposing the entrance to it, there is no entrance or exit in that field currently. The description that they showed us, it's just like putting in a driveway. There's no room to go around it like there is at Smilax. So yeah, I agree. The state, NDOT has to do a traffic and safety study. Is it gonna happen overnight? No, it's not. But there are no berms on either side of the road whatsoever. And if they were to have to put them in, that affects my front yard because of the distance it has to take. The traffic on that highway, speed limit's 55. Nobody does 55 out there. Like I said, 34 plus years out there, it's amazing on the speeds that I see on a regular basis. You know, like today. I mean, I see cars, on average, they're 60, 65 miles an hour. I've seen many accidents out there too, due to it. With these trucks, as they have stated, what we've always heard, that they're gonna have 6 to 8 concrete trucks stationed there. And then they said, on average, each truck would be doing at least 10 trips. So 10 times 8, that's 80 trips. Then you also have them leaving. They are literally going to be crossing traffic in order to go left to head towards Smilax. The delivery trucks, they're gonna be coming from the east. They also have to turn left to turn into that facility. So the speeds that people drive out there, it's, like I said, it's a disaster waiting to happen, you know. We keep looking at things that show, you know, the way people drive, nobody pays attention. I mean, I had a neighbor, I was sitting, waiting for my daughter to get on the school bus that stops in front of my house. I'm still fighting that battle to get the school bus to put out its stop arm on US 20. So, and when vehicles pass the bus, I have to watch that bus rock. Semis, cars, and they don't pass it at 10 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour. They're passing it at 50, 55, sometimes 60. I mean, it's disastrous. I almost watched my neighbor to the west of me pull out once. He was getting ready to pull out to work. Well, actually, as a matter of fact, he did pull out to work. Somebody's blowing around another car at about 65 miles an hour. He had to pull off the road just to avoid a head-on collision. So adding this out there, creating that area where there is no commercial or industry in that area, through that whole area, entering and exiting, it's a disaster waiting to happen. As for the concrete batch plant with all the health issues and the chemicals that are out there, nobody's gonna be able to contain dust 100%. I mean, I've seen the one on Bendix. Out front of there, when they're having busy during the summer days, Bendix is full of dust and dirt, and it's just blowing through the air. Like I said, the winds, the predominant winds out there, you know, summertime, it's there. You got south, southeast, southwest. Where's it gonna blow? It's gonna blow to all the houses around in that area. I won't speak for all of the area, but I do know that everybody immediately to the west of me and pretty much all the residents to the east and on Tulip and even to the east on 20 are everybody's against it, and the biggest concern is the safety issue, and then, like I said, also the health issues.
You got 30 seconds.
30 seconds? Then the last thing is, like I said, they're gonna have to put a well in. Well, it's gonna suck the water down. I've been out there 34 years, and I checked my well. Since I put my well in, my water has already dropped 4 feet. And if you're gonna start adding more wells, and they start sucking water out, what's gonna happen to my well? What's gonna happen to my water? It's gotten worse since the shredder went in, and I have to deal with rust. So, thank you for your time, and I hope you make the right decision.
Appreciate it.
Hello, my name is Jacob Barkley, 29108 US 20, New Carlisle. I just got a few things to say. Let's start off with the question, but I'm not looking for an answer. It was, do you want a nasty, dirty, polluting concrete batch plant in your backyard? While batch plants are essential, their placement should be strategic, minimizing harm to both humans and the environment. The resulting need for concrete batch plants shouldn't come at the cost of residential tranquility and public health. The noise, sound, air, and ground pollution is gonna affect all of my neighbors' lives that live around here. I live 5 houses to the east of Tulip Road. It's my parents' house. We moved there in '85. I've spent a majority of my life there. Environmental hazards are known to result from the concrete washout water. Those corrosive properties could harm aquatic life and contaminate groundwater. The dust that blows from concrete batch plants covers roofs, cars, pools, patios, barbecue pits. Dust is everywhere. That dust is a kind of air pollution called particle matter, can penetrate deep into the lungs. Is just one part of the problem that concrete batch plants present. I worked in the tile and stone industry for 10+ years. Silica sand is dangerous. I recently had a stroke a couple of years ago. I believe the 10+ years of using and selling these products contributed to my medical issues. This is not an environment-friendly business. Destroys ecosystems and poses very serious, dangerous health risks to the community. The EPA has found that the air pollution, particle matter from concrete plants can increase the risk of asthma and cardiac arrest if people inhale too much. Medical doctors stated that an area within 5 miles of a cement plant will be high danger zone, and with 20 miles of a cement plant will be in danger zone. This is going to make 2 batch plants within 5 miles of each other to supply the New Carlisle economic development area. That is the reasonable and logical place for the temporary batch plant, would be in that zone. I mean, that's where the concrete's going to be getting used. That's the ground that's going to be turned into concrete, parking lots, buildings, etc. Nobody traveling to New Carlisle wants to see a concrete plant and deal with the 2-lane highway and the trucks traveling in and out on their way to visit New Carlisle and patronize those businesses. It will cause traffic issues on US 20, lower property values of neighboring homes. For these reasons, as well as some of my neighbors, we oppose the site for this plant. And you know, this meeting is about rezoning a residential area for the plant. You know, why isn't it about rezoning it in the New Carlisle economic development? You know, this is you guys' plan for 30 years. My grandfather helped get Iron Tech Coat and started this stuff in the 90s, Phil Barkley. He knew it was going to go on, but you guys keep adding on to this new economic area. It started this much and this much and this much. And now you're bringing it north more, northeast, when from the maps I've seen and everything, it's from like Iron Tech down south of State Road 2 is like, you know, your future plans of development. So can we try maybe looking for a place there? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm John Borkowski. I live at 29136 US Highway 20. I know the Miller family, grew up with them. They certainly have the right to sell or lease their property, no question there. However, the question becomes is the safety of the area. You talked about the traffic involved. I've lived out there all my life. I've seen accidents occur at Tulip with people pulling out, people waiting to make a turn, getting rear-ended or broadsided. My son had to run off the road there to avoid hitting someone because they pulled out in front of him. Now you're going to have heavier truck traffic. It's not really acceptable. That is a 55-mile-an-hour zone. People aren't doing 55. They're doing 60, 65, I've seen 70. I've seen more than that. I've seen people going east miss the bend east of us because they're going too fast. In the last 3 years, there was a fatality at that bend. Here recently this year, somebody went off the road, hit the barn on the north side. Late last year, we had 3 motorcycles miss it. Now, they were doing a lot faster than 70, but now you put another entrance, exit, 900 feet from Tulip. No, you're going to have the accidents occurring down further. There's going to be blood, quite frankly. There'll be fatalities. So it's just not a good thing. For safety's sake, also, you look, he had one gentleman talk about he lives right across the street from it. He's got kids that the bus stops for. There's 2 other houses there with kids that the bus has to stop for. It makes it worse. I myself, I got to watch my rearview mirror anytime I want to pull into my drive heading west, because people inevitably try to pass me on the right, either take off my mailbox or hit me. So again, it's not a safe place. It doesn't belong on 20 in that facility, in that area. If anything, it does belong, like everybody's been saying, back in IEC zone. And that's perhaps where you should be looking and getting a variance for them. Get it back where it belongs, where it's going to be used. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Hello, my name is Mike Tierney, 29555 US Highway 20. I'm directly across the road and just west of the proposed site. Obviously, it's an eyesore that I'd be looking at, but that's not what I'm really concerned about. It's the safety side of it, I think, is the most important. Just like, I'm not going to reiterate everything, but the wrecks that we've seen in the last few years, the amount of traffic, it takes me sometimes 10 minutes in the morning to get out of my driveway to go to work. I usually head to South Bend every morning, and it's gotten ridiculous to think that we live out in the country and we still see that kind of traffic, but it's there. The whole idea that I've always thought of what zoning is the control of that sprawl. We've seen the IEC come in there and all that's been planned, the amount of money that's been put into planning in our little area is amazing over the last 20 years. There has to be a way that zoning restricts that sprawl to a point. The community and the groups from New Carlisle that always come in for any of these projects to talk about the community, that is important to everyone to keep that as long as we can. We know that the growth is there, and we know that this industrial area is growing and it's going to grow fast. But while we're growing, there needs to be a limit on where that growth goes, and keep the look of the community, the feel of the community the way it always has been, as long as we can. I think, again, trying to find a place closer makes a lot of sense. If there's some reason that the IEC is restricting them going right next to where they need to be, then we need to find a variance for that. There's no reason. Common sense needs to prevail. I know it's hard to do that in politics, but this is a chance where we can actually do it. We haven't had a real good history with the shredder and things, the way things have been handled through the years in our area, and there's a lot of bad taste there. But hopefully this is an opportunity for the people in charge to actually do the right thing. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Jim Miller, 54537 Tulip Road, no relation to the Millers of the petitioners. Just a few comments. You want to slow the traffic down on US 20? Take an excavator out there and dig a 20-foot ditch. That's the only way you're going to slow it down. Concrete truck plant or not, it's not going to slow them down. Okay. The only thing I do like is what Joe said. Give me a time limit. That's all I'd like. If they're not a good neighbor, you won't do it again. 5 years, 3 years, 4 years, they've got a right to make money. The Millers have a right to sell, lease, whatever it is on their property, and I don't care. Give me a time limit. 1,800 feet behind my house is a shredder plant. I've had to repair 3 walls in my house because of explosions. If Kurt Concrete in a year sells that plant, is the next owner going to be held to the same standards that this man signed up for, or are they open? There's your problems. They will be open. The shredder plant, they didn't do all the things they said they were going to do. There's no wall to my back of my house. I've got a light that shines 24 hours a day in my bedroom light windows. Give them a time limit. Good neighbors, welcome. Bad neighbors, give them the boot. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Franum, 29088 Edison Road, New Carlisle. I guess everybody else here could see the same thing that I saw was the safety issue. And I think everyone on the board knows that also. That concrete plant was proposed, making that left-hand turn across the two-lane highway, traffic coming from the west going east, very, very dangerous. And like they've already committed to, 100 plus maybe trucks a day going there, 100 one way, 100 coming back, which 200 trips, plus all the trucks that's going to be delivering the material there. And like it's already been brought up before, but the shredder plant has trucks delivering there all the time. Trucks get backed up because someone gets there and that next truck can't get into the shredder plant. Same thing's going to happen with the concrete plant. Where are they going to go? Off to the side, both directions. Very dangerous, very dangerous. Then they also, when they go down to Smilex to make that turn on the left, that's just another safety hazard. And then, like they mentioned before, they get to the train track. Train track is backed up most of the time. You can't get through there, very hard. And like other people have brought up, I think there is a better location for the plant. If it's desperately needed out there, State Road 2 would be a good location, a 4-lane highway. There's other properties available, other options, whether it be a variance into the IEC or not. But that would be another issue. The other issue would be unsightly. I can't see how anybody can say that this conforms with the area that is being put in. They have this here temporary equipment set up on Bendix Drive where you can drive by and take a look at it. Doesn't look pretty to me. Doesn't look like a farm tractor or a barn or anything like that. Very unsightly. I'm glad that the last meeting they had when they're proposing, they had the mining materials in there. And I'm glad that wherever that goes, that they will not let them mine. Because the company that bought Kurt is maybe a great company that has been here a long time, but they're not Kurt anymore. They're owned by another company whose main agenda is mining. And if they get the chance, they will mine. And another issue is temporary. I think we should all look at this as permanent there. So if we want a permanent plant there, then so be it. If we want a temporary plant, well, then let's make it temporary and let's put restrictions on it. I think we, should ask ourselves, is this an improvement for the community or a convenience for a company that is profit motivated? I don't think we have to think twice on that. I can't think of one good reason or one good thing that will come out of this concrete plant for the community. I think I have a whole list of negative issues. Safety being the number one concern, increased truck traffic, unsightly equipment and material that's going to be stored there, increased noise. I'm
Got about
sorry.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. There's a whole lot of health concerns, noise from the plant when it's operating, affecting the people. Those plants start working at late at night, waking them up. The truck noise, loss of quality of life. Trying to see what's the most important. Everything.
5 seconds.
Thank you for your time. I hope you make a good decision. Appreciate it.
I'm Fred Vollmer, 891 Tulip Road. Like everyone else, I'm concerned about having the truck traffic on 20. Being I used to drive truck, I know how long it takes to get up to speed and get down from speed. And in the span from where it's proposed to where they're going to turn, they probably won't get up to 45 miles an hour before they have to start slowing down, which causes hazards for the trucks, not only for the people. Because as a driver, I'm concerned about what happens with the drivers. So that is my biggest concern, and I know they're doing a study, or will be doing a study, as to what happens with the road, if it has to be widened or whatever. Another concern I have is they're building up barriers on all three sides for sound. But they're not building a barrier on the south side. Now, there are 3 houses south of there, approximately 900 feet from the back edge of their site. My son lives in the first house. He can't be here because, of course, he has to work. But my concern would be that they need to build a barrier there also for the people south of the plant. And like I said, everything else has pretty much been covered. Another question I had is, why can't the IEC amend so they can be in the IEC? Because like everyone else, the train track there in the last few years has gone to the point where the trains have stopped as much as 3 hours to 4 hours at a time and blocking 2 to 3 of the intersections. If they block the intersection of Smilax, they have nowhere to go other than back to the bypass to get their product to the battery plant or the rest of the IEC. So those are my concerns. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, my name's Dennis Camp, US 2029-261. I want to know what the value of the property out there is going to do. Is it going to raise it, going to lower it, or what's it going to do? The value of the property is across the street. You know, there's been a wreck out there. Lady hit a neighbor guy in the combine, ran right into him, and all that. It's not good out there. Not at all. You guys live out there, would you like it in your yard? Hell no, you wouldn't. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else sitting in here that would like to speak against this petition? Okay, any on Zoom? Shelley, I can't see the screen. Seems like there's one.
Go ahead, Mary.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak, and thank you for your time that you spend on this board. My name is Mary Countryman, 52959 Timothy Road, New Carlisle. I agree with the past, I think it's 11 or so speakers of what they've said, and I'll try not to repeat what they've said. but they made some very valid points. I can cite multiple examples of differences in the plural and singular in referring to projects and long-term, and as far as what the Mr. Webb's letter says and what the SUV states. So I do have several examples of that, of where it sounds like it's a singular project, but then it also has references with where it cites plural. In reading EPA information on general permits, chapter 164, item L for concrete batch plants, the definition of, quote, temporary equipment means less than 4 consecutive weeks in a calendar year, unquote. The EPA has defined temporary. There needs to be an end date added to this project at the very least, and if approved, they need to reapply for a new SUV at the end of that specified time period. Without this, this becomes an example of a new definition of temporary for any and everything in St. Joe County. Also, within the SUV, there are discrepancies as noting this project as, quote, light industrial, unquote, under project information, and, quote, general industrial, unquote, under special uses information. So could we have some clarification, please? There will be a water well added at this property, which again implies this is not a temporary project. The nearby wells of the Tierney and the Van Slager home, their wells are only 45 feet deep as of last that I saw in the paperwork, with static water at only 7 feet. This, along with the Peerless Water Study stating that the aquifer is, quote, highly susceptible to contamination, unquote, is another reason this is not an appropriate allowance for an SUV. There are about 231 domestic wells alone that rely on the aquifer as their water source. And per the EPA, quote, the EPA water protection policy applies to all inland surface groundwaters, marine waters, and it goes on. It has specific obligations relating to concrete batching plants. Operators must ensure that wastewater generated at premises is not discharged into any waters or onto land in any place which is reasonably likely to enter any waters, including processes such as seepage, stormwater infiltration, and it goes on. By the high water tables in that area, it is very likely there will be contamination by seepage or infiltration through the soil. Looking at their Plymouth plant photo of curates during a previous presentation, there were multiple piles of additives used open to the elements of wind, rain, and snow. Compared to a farm field, there are no plants directly to absorb any or many of the leaching pollutants associated with a concrete batch plant. Once the damage is done, it's too late. Some may say it's private property, but the aquifer has no property lines, the air has no property lines, and the trucks will have a negative effect for all of us living in the area as they are driving on all the roads that we share. And I'd also like to know, what are the hours of operation to be? Not intentions, please get it in writing, as lighting can be added so they're able to work 24/7. Compared to farming that 140-acre plot of land zoned as ag, even with some variables from spring to fall, the farming equipment would be operating about a week or two for all operations, with tilling, spraying, fertilizing, harvest, working mainly daylight hours. In addition to things people like, and to those things, with those things come the negatives. Along with some of those things that Sherry Hine listed, I'd like to add water and sewer and septic. Both are necessary, but it's all about location. Some things just don't belong in every place or near each other, and the water needs to be protected.
Mary, you got 30 seconds.
Okay. Under variance information, the value of adjacent property, it states the value of neighboring property will not be affected. I highly disagree, and can any of you say it won't be affected? From what we've heard today, this plant isn't applying for a special use variant. They want a rezoning. I have no problem with a family benefiting, but their right to benefit ends when others are negatively impacted. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else on Zoom that would like to speak against this petition? please use the raise hand function. Seeing none, the public portion is now closed. You get a 5-minute rebuttal.
We'll try here. I made some notes, and if you guys have anything too that you made notes, and keep me clear on some of it. But just starting with probably the most predominant thing was the safety that I heard of people coming up. And so we would be completely bound to what NDOT, what their study is, whether they do a traffic study. They're going to determine what's going to be safe for us to enter and exit on US 20, up into, including maybe a stoplight or whatever they deem. We will have to honor that. We would honor that and to operate there and get approval. That should not hold up a favorable today. That's usually during the development phase of a project. And we're going to go through that study to be able to have an entrance and exit off of US 20. We operate already with a plant in Elkhart County that is on US 20. We have these same challenges. We've never had an accident there. That plant is an 11-truck plant that we have in Elkhart County. Our South Bend plant is on Bendix, very busy. We have railroad tracks that we have to cross to exit. Our property, the tracks are basically right on our property. We have to cross over plus enter onto Bendix. It's very busy. Our Plymouth and Rochester plants, Plymouth is right on US 31, which you have traffic in excess of 75 miles an hour. And we pull out on US 31. So it's important on us too to keep our drivers safe. That's a huge thing for us to consider. And we're gonna, want to have the necessity of following what NDOT suggests for this location for us to operate. We have setbacks with the plant back far enough to allow for traffic to come in, for us to exit safely. And see what else we have here. Oh, as far as, where we're asking to do business, it's not maybe as simple as the perception. We can't just put our finger on a map and just pick the most convenient spot and the best place to operate. We have to purchase the land. We have to make a financial commitment. So there's a lot of, things to consider. We feel this is a viable spot and to address some of this. And also to put limits on us when we're making a financial commitment, whether it's leasing or purchasing land. That's kind of rough on a business, I would say, when we're trying to do that, to conduct business. Our plant capacity, just to let you guys know this too, we can batch maybe 10 to 11 trucks an hour. So that's the limit of the plant. So we can't batch 30 or 40 trucks to have them enter onto US 20 every hour. So we're limited to the capacity of our plant and how fast it can put material in the truck, and from there we mix and then we deliver. So 10 to 11 per hour max out of that plant is what we can do. Yeah. Right, so we kind of, about stormwater, there's some comments about our water that how do we contain, we're bound by EPA, plus we have concrete washout containment. So we do not come back and just, if there's, our drivers will wash back when they come back from a job, so we call it gray water, but there's some cementitious mixed in with that water. We have to contain that. We cannot just come back, and we do not come back, empty onto the ground, let alone empty into a waterway. I mean, that's a huge no-no. We follow all that, and we're bound to do business that way.
You have about 30 seconds left. But
All right, I'm trying.
15 questions.
I
Could
know.
you address the operating hours question? What would the operating hours of the portable structure be?
Okay, so typical hours for us are, we can start at 5 in the morning, end at trucks coming in maybe 6, 7 at night at the latest. If there's some big pours occasionally, just like probably impacted some folks here, but like at New Carlisle Power Plant, they had some bigger pours that we did run through the night. But that's not all the time, you know, and we're also bound by guys working so many hours before they have to be off of their shift, you know, so we can't run guys 24/7, we don't. But we will make exceptions where, you know, if it's a big pour and they need to get it done, we will operate sometimes during the night, but the majority of time, it's starting usually around 5, 6 in the morning, and it can go as late as 6, 7 at night, that guys are coming back. We'll stop batching by 4:30, 5 o'clock, but by the time they deliver and come back, they'll be entering our property later in the evening. There's one more thing,
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
brought about dust mitigation. I mean, we're you know, in the major traffic areas around our plant, we would actually pour concrete, which would reduce that amount of dust that we're, you know, but if there's areas that are not paved, you know, we can put a chemical down for dust mitigation, and we're committed to doing that, to be a friendly partner.
All right, so that was one of my questions, is how often is that done, right? So I drive past the Bendix facility every day, probably 4 or 5 times a day, right? And that was one of my questions, is how many times does that product get put down? Because it is dusty, right?
It is.
So that was one of my questions. I do have a ton of questions for you, by the way.
Awesome, thank you. But no, a treatment can last, you know, they say for, you know, a month or 2, but we will do as needed. You know, if we need to do that, more than that, we can. It just depends how it's reacting and what's going on.
Does anybody else got any questions, or can I go? Can I just ask?
You probably catch mine,
Okay,
so go ahead.
all right, so how often do you anticipate, and Joe kind of hit on this, right, your hours of operation, but how often do you anticipate that you might need some sort of temporary lighting, or will you be putting up, you know, light stands out there, and are you going to do something to have them not reflect or not shine into homeowners' houses to try to alleviate the issue that, sorry, I forgot your name, he had in his house with the shredder, right?
So we can definitely do directional lighting where it's not gonna shine right on US 20 or into residents, you know.
And we can get a photometrics plan with the plant on it and showing the distance that the lighting will cover. We typically have done that in the past in any new builds or portable plants where we plan to utilize them in the evenings. We plan to do lighting photometric plans to submit to whoever would like to see them.
Yeah, because I'm counting within that little bit of stretch there, just on the picture that I can see off of my packet, there's 18 houses right there off of 20, not to mention the ones that are off of Tulip, right? So that's one of my biggest questions. My second question was brought up, was the barrier on the south, right? So there is one on the north, south, or northeast and west. Would there be an issue with putting up a barrier on the south? I have no idea I know where this is, but I don't know what.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't deem that necessary, not saying we're not open to it, it's just, there's not, he could be very accurate on I don't know how many linear feet it really is to the next residence to the south. It's, you know, it's an 80-acre plot of land, we're gonna land on 10, and we're on the north end of it.
Yeah.
So it's pretty far distance to the south there, right?
And we have in-house services that we can run noise decibel testing. We've done it in the past. We have plenty of plants in residential areas, both portable and fixed plants. And we've done that in the past to help alleviate or mitigate some of those concerns per the neighbors for the noise control.
And Sean did kind of go over it a little bit, but we have a picture of 3 of our plants where our plants are right in residential areas.
5 out of the 12 people brought up the question about the trucks getting stuck by the railroad tracks. Dan, the hours of FRA are actually 12 hours, not 8, but just for future reference. But what is gonna happen with the trucks? I mean, we pour concrete all the time, right, in our foundations, and I never have really thought about them getting stuck at a railroad track that they couldn't back up or turn around.
So we are technology savvy. If that happens, we will probably have to shift to South Bend. I mean, if it is crazy that it's for whatever reasons backed up, we do this all the time. We shift trucks amongst plants, and we can be quick to act if we need to. We're hoping that doesn't happen a lot, but if something like that does happen, we can react and shift out of South Bend if we need to.
I know what question's coming up next. All right, so the dust collections, you already answered that. Yeah, how often do you really think, how big of the project does it have to be for you to run an overnight operation?
Jeez. Can you repeat that?
How big of a project is needed? How big of a project, how much concrete on a specific project is needed for you to have to run overnight?
Okay, so we've had 2 projects that I can think of. Both of them were referred to with both power plants in Niles and New Carlisle. And so the trigger on that would be about 1,000 to 1,500 yard pour. 10 yards in a truck, so you're talking 100, 150 trucks. And so that would probably trigger something that just becomes a scheduling issue and trying to service. So sometimes they like to go in the night, that big of a pour, because concrete, they're setting properties. There's some things with the concrete to finish it. That big of a pour, sometimes they have to go earlier so they can do their operation, or they demand that of us so they can finish their concrete operations on their site.
Okay.
Yeah, good, yeah. So Brad's saying that we've maybe done that 6 times in the last 5 years, something like that.
And then if you do have to pivot to South Bend, what is that? Is there?
It's problematic, it's hard, we're trying to service out of South Bend too. So you'd have to reroute, not only would we have to try to pull resources from South Bend, the trucks there, we'd have to send those trucks from New Carlisle down US 20 to South Bend and load. And it's not easy, but, yeah.
Okay, well, I can't read the rest of my chicken scratch, so I guess you're off the hook.
I got a couple questions. How often do you plan on using, Tulip to go south to 20, or to 2?
To 2?
Yeah. how
Yeah,
often-
so we're projecting that most of that plant use will be in the IEC. We feel that way, if that's what you're asking, like, if we're going.
Is most of the work off of 2 or 20? If you'd be coming off one of the roads?
No, so most of the work is either in the center of the IEC off of kind of Edison and Larson.
Right.
And then State Road, south of State Road 2.
South of State Road 2.
Yeah, the battery plant's on the north side of State Road 2.
Right.
And then the other project, the majority of the other project on the south side of State Road 2.
State Road 2, so you'll be going down Tulip as a truck route? Or no?
We would,
But that's what he shows the truck route in the map.
So we would, again, whatever NDOT deems us to have a safe in and out at 20, we would take a left on US 20 out of the plant.
Right.
And then a left on Smilax to Edison. And then we would use Edison and Larson to get to where we need to go.
Okay.
So Tulip would be to the east.
Yeah, that's why I was trying to figure out why they made it a truck route, though.
And that's part of the reason we,
Red is no trucks. You're looking at the wrong.
Yeah, you want to look at the green,
I'm looking
not
at
the
the
red.
wrong road.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're
I don't have a map in front of me.
yeah, so a lot of those roads are not truck routes out in that area.
Right.
So you're kind of restricted to what the green's marked on the map.
Yeah, the county engineer is not going to allow any access on the Tulip.
Yeah, so the green, so they're next to the red one all the way.
They're
You got
next.
the far red road on the right, and then you got the second one in, heading west. They're next to that, and then they'd be turning left to go to the green. which is Smilax, right?
Yeah,
Smilax to Edison.
Smilax to Edison.
Can't make it any more clear that it's literally in crayon.
The text could be larger, but yeah.
And, I have one little note too that I made here, but all of our trucks are GPS designated truck routes by our dispatch team. So the drivers, it's well communicated what they have to do, what they're supposed to do. And, they have they have a tablet in their truck that has
Yeah, I was thinking it was.
pretty much like, if you think like Google Maps, it's turn-by-turn direction of where they're supposed to go. And we direct that from our dispatch office for each driver.
Jim, you commented you have a similar plant in Elkhart off of 20, and I'm not that familiar with the Elkhart area. Is that a 2-lane or 4-lane highway?
It's right on the east side of State Road 15 and US 20. And they just widened that. So for a long period of time, as you come through the stoplight heading east to get into our plant, there's a deceleration lane for us to use that was, deemed by NDOT, but use that to get into our plant. For years though, getting left or right, you're going across, it's just like US 20 here at Tulip and 20. But they just widened it, so it is a little easier, I guess, going to the east for us or to the right now. But before we had to take a left across traffic on US 20 there. It's 50 or 55 miles an hour through that area, so.
I was just curious how similar setting it was, if it was a 2-lane or 4-lane.
Yeah, there's just there's a stoplight that's closer to our plant there on the corner. We're just off the corner a little bit, so that's a little difference maybe than, a longer stretch of US 20. But
Abby, maybe you can explain. I heard a lot of comments, people asking, why aren't they building into IEC? And is that something that Bill maybe, or I guess where did that portion come from as far as what was allowed?
Before we could ask that question.
Before we move to staff, do we have anything else for the petitioner? I guess?
Tom, you got anything? No. Lance, you got anything? Okay, I didn't know if he was pivoting back to something for him, that's why. Okay, all right, thanks, guys, appreciate it.
All right, so the way the use is classified, if zoned industrial, it would not be permitted in the IEC. The intent of the use restrictions in the IEC is really to create that business tech park style with uses that would fall more in that line. With that being said, this use is a special use in the agricultural district and the industrial district. So for a point of clarification, when we talk about why here, why not there, it is a special use in the agricultural and the industrial districts. It, to my knowledge, has been a special use in the agricultural district since the 1961 zoning ordinance, which is why we see them in the rural locations that they showed on the slides.
How'd they get the one in Osceola?
And then Brandy reminded me, because there was such a concern about mining and other other uses that could be deemed heavy industrial, they were included in the original list of 7 or so uses that were prohibited on written commitments that were attached to rezonings to industrial in the IUC area. So Brandy's helping me out here with all the context. So there were, they were integrated as prohibited uses in the IEC overlay.
I don't get it.
I don't understand.
Because like down there on Sample, when we allowed them to pile the aggregate in the industrial zone, that was okay. When they put the crusher in and brought the used concrete to them, that was an industrial zone there on Sample. You remember that one, don't you?
I do, but that's different than the IEC, obviously, so it's just
Yeah.
what it is. I guess, I have a question for staff, and I don't know how, there's been a lot, this has been a great opportunity for everyone to speak about this, and Mr. Sellers just brought up a very valid point. This is a first step in a process, and I, as a board member, don't feel I have enough information to be able to make a good determination about my feelings about this subject. There's a lot of uncertainty in this, and while Mr. Sellers makes a great point of this is the first step and there will things happen afterwards, what happens afterwards impacts my decision. So that's a troublesome area for me. Because I don't control and I don't know how other people are gonna react to this. So what does that mean?
What information do you?
I need hours of operation, how many exact trucks? What's NDOT gonna say about egress and egress before I say, yes, I think that I should send this to a favorable or unfavorable opportunity? Those are things that we don't get the opportunity to get when it comes to this board. And I think that's a disadvantage. We're making decisions based off of, the one lady made the point of innuendos and speech, which is, it is, if I'm not mistaken, if it's said in the record, that is not written contract, but it is a verbal contract, correct? Or no, we can't hold them to that.
I mean, if it's not in a official condition that is made as part of the motion to do, to approve or whatever, if it's an official condition in that, they can be held to it. The current owner can be held to that condition.
Right.
If it's a written commitment that's recorded, any future owners would also be held to the same requirements. As far as what's represented in the petition and the statements of the petitioner, unless you specifically word your approvals to say that you are, like if we're talking about a variance, if you word your specific motion to approve the variance based upon the representations that are set forth today.
In the testimony or whatever, yeah.
Yes. If you leave that out, then whatever they said doesn't matter particularly later on. If you specifically say that it's tied to the specific representations that they've made, then it could possibly be enforced.
And that's the struggle I'm having, is there's been no specific representations made. And to Mr. Seller's point, I hate to put a stipulation on them to say they can only operate from the hours of 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. because that's mitigating their business opportunity. But I don't know what they're going to be operating under. So how do I make a valid decision when I don't have the data I need to be able to understand completely what they think they're going to be doing and make a decision based off that?
I mean,
Mr. Chairman?
Hold on, Lance.
Mhm.
So I understand exactly what you're saying, right? I feel the same way. There's a lot of, the community, we have to understand and we have to listen to what the community around a certain petition, how they value that, right?
Right.
And I do have a lot of questions, but we had this come up last time, right? Where we said, we have a lot of questions, we feel like this needs to be done, we feel like that needs to be done, or I would like to have the answer to this or like the answer to that. How are we supposed to proceed when we do have questions like that, but all we're doing is sending something to another board that they are the ones that are actually making that decision on whether or not? Because last time we sent it with a favorable recommendation, correct? Mm-hmm. And the council denied it, correct?
It was withdrawn.
Oh, it was withdrawn, that's right, I'm sorry.
That's right.
So, and we had questions with that one also.
So if the specific pieces of information that you think that you need are information that's likely to be able to be gotten for you within the next month, you have the ability under your rules to table the petition to ask for specific information. If it's the kind of information that's like business plans that's, not generally put together until later in the process, I don't know if tabling it for another month gets you any more than what you currently have, if that makes sense.
So a traffic study is not something that we could get in 30 days?
I don't think so.
Correct. Well, that's what, yeah, so the traffic study is, that's
And
really
there
what I
is
want
a
to see right now.
period of delay between here and the council in which they could get more information if you feel that the council could use it, and you can, state on the record you think the council could use it, and they could bring it to them when it goes to them, if you send it to them from here. But those are your options, really. You can ask for specific information to table it, to
Well,
get that and see if you do,
and
or
I
send it
believe this is
along.
where Lance is probably going to go, but our other option is we send with no recommendation, and we state that we don't have enough, I personally don't have enough data at my disposal to be able to make a recommendation.
Your rules require that you at least try both favorable and unfavorable before you get to no recommendation.
Well, now you just complicated matters for me, so thanks.
Ready to say. Go ahead, Lance.
Okay, well, Joe was spot on kind of with where I was on this thing. And the first thing I want to say is, I was the one dissenting vote last month because of the location with regard to the routes they were going to have to take. And I was on record saying there's got to be something along one of these highways. And now here we are, which makes a lot of sense. But now we've got, talk about train stopping and holding up traffic. And we all know that's a crazy stretch where that curve is. And it's just a reality that the IEC doesn't allow us to put it where, quite frankly, it should be. So these are the restrictions we have. But based on the public, outcry about the safety in the highway, I would really personally, and I was thinking this a while ago in the presentation, I would really like to have Sky or somebody or your engineering company, Jim, or heaven forbid, a representative from NDOT, talk about the kinds of things that would probably be required here. I can't imagine just the basic shoulder that's there with the amount of heavy equipment and distances that they have to go before they have to make the left-hand turn, that something wouldn't be altered in that highway to manage the traffic. And it kind of seems like we're all assuming that it's just going to stay as it is, and I can't imagine that being the case. But without some sort of an answer on that point, I have a difficult time not tabling this.
Part of the,
Go ahead.
part of the problem you get into when you're dealing with NDOT is the fact that, now, try to picture everybody that's got an idea of something they want to do on a state highway. Well, I doubt if NDOT's going to drop their plans and say, well, come back to me when you've got approval to do that, and then we'll move ahead with some type of appropriate traffic study. So it's kind of like the old chicken versus the egg concept, which comes first. I agree, the access to this site is critical. But I think if they went to NDOT right now, I'm going to assume NDOT's going to tell them, I said, well, we don't even know if you're getting this thing approved. I think I don't even think it needs to be a commitment, but it could be a commitment. NDOT's going to require a traffic study anyway. It's coming off their highway. They always do when they have a use there. They always get involved in issuing the driveway permit. So I appreciate, there were a lot of valid concerns here today, and we talked about the traffic study. That's going to be done. We talked about the time limit. Could we put that in the written commitments? We talked a little bit, there was some concern raised about a lighting plan. Should we put that be conditioned in there as to having a requirement? Not necessarily to come back to this board. I'm fine with a lighting plan being approved by the staff. We don't want to micromanage the site development. And then we talked about the hours of operation. Those issues aren't going to change in 30 days. They're still going to be there. So, and the county council certainly has the ability to react to any conditions that we might set. I agree with you, Joe. It's kind of tough to say, okay, the hours are going to be 7 to 5. Well, that's not realistic, but by the same token, I understand there's going to be situations when they're having to pour that 1,000 yards of concrete, and they're going to have to work longer hours. I think if we can get to a point of putting our concerns within the written commitments, if it's going to be a favorable recommendation, then we forward it on to the county council and let them do their thing.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, being on various boards over the years, I mean, you see a lot of projects, they're all different to their own extent. But it does take something like this to cause a reaction with NDOT or traffic studies or whatever to make improvements for the railroad tracks or the turn lanes or the, right-of-ways, stuff like that. So something's got to happen first. And usually this is one of the first stops to get to that next step. And so, you have to start somewhere. But this is what something like that would take to help those improvements, for a positive side of things, to help those traffic concerns. I live on a busy road myself, intersection. I've seen countless number of horrible accidents, but eventually there's going to be improvements, in the positive way, in the right way, and that's why there's a process to that extent, so.
So is that a motion?
I probably wouldn't be opposed to written commitments on a time frame. I don't know if there's what that realistic time frame would be. Is it a 5-year, a 10-year, or a 6-year?
If they're allowed to come back and reapply,
I would-
then
I
that's
would
kind of
100%
arbitrary.
agree
So
with
it could
that,
say
yeah.
6 or 7 years or whatever you want to say. So, I would try to be in favor of no working during the hours of 10 to 4. Because there's some mitigating, like I understand the PORs, but there's some quality of life opportunities in this area that are very concerning to me that if we don't bring these up, will everyone bring, is the county council going to bring these up? Is it going to be, thought about down that process as well too, so. But how much limits can we put on things? She'll tell us what we can and can't do realistically, so yeah, that makes it tough.
Yeah, but most of them 24-hour pours are so seldom. It's like, the Super Bowl, it's once a year,
Sure.
So if that's gonna interfere with your life, then maybe we ought to get rid of TV.
It's a little extreme, Sid, but okay.
All right. Well, let's figure out something here.
Staff already had written commitments, right?
Yeah, they
Is
got-
that was staff.
They're on the.
Yeah,
They
they're on the
got
screen
the
there.
berm as approved.
So the berm for the vegetation, the plant shall not access Tulip Road. Truck traffic related to special use shall limit the state roads and county road designated as the truck routes by the county engineer. Material extraction and mining on site shall be prohibited. The concrete plant operation shall comply with all the performance standards contained in section 154.073 of the St. Joe County zoning ordinance.
Number 2 should be changed to as long as it's not a truck route. If they would ever change Tulip to being a truck route, you can't deny them access.
Well, yeah, because 3 trumps 2. If Tulip's not a truck route, then that 3 covers that, so yeah.
Shall not access Tulip Road.
Staff have any issues with that?
No.
As long as it's a truck, if they make it a truck route, what would make the difference?
Right.
You just
I
have to
agree.
put the wording in there to.
Yeah.
All right, so with amended written commitments,
Yeah, if you're gonna adopt the staff's written commitments in whatever you decide to do, it does, with that pointed out, you could just say, plus with the written commitments proposed by staff without number 2, or something to that effect. The written commitments proposed by staff except for 2. Because I do think you're right, the wording of 3 would essentially cover 2.
Well, the big thing is these roads, the non-access roads do get used by trucks.
it's not our problem right now.
No, but I know. Trash trucks go down them.
Doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it right.
It is what it is. Farmers have trucks too.
We can't take comments from the gallery.
Yeah.
So, they gotta,
You have to start under your rules with either favorable or unfavorable, and then you have to try the other one if it fails, before you can get to no recommendation. This is a rule that's in your rules because at the time that they were created, there was apparently a lot of no recommendations that were getting sent, and
that I have.
some people were getting tired of it.
I'll make a motion, Adam Devon, I make a motion that we approve
Send it with
Oh,
a,
I'm sorry, that we sent to common council, or the county council, with a favorable recommendation, subject to written commitments 1, 3, 4, and 5, and also adding a renewal, 5-year renewal requirement
in the written commitments.
in the written commitments.
Okay.
Tom Byers, second.
We have a first and a second.
Hold on a second.
Nope.
So so they're renewing their favorable, or
With a
renewal
requirement to
special
come back
exception.
and renew their special exception use after 5 years. So essentially, it expires, and then they would have to come back and ask again.
I guess at that point, I'd say what's it cost to set one up and move it? That could be enough to deter it right there.
all right. So required to renew their special use at year 5. Right, 5?
5 years is what,
My motion was 5 years.
5 years was what was said.
5 years from when?
The approval.
5 years from the approval by the county council if they approve
Well, by
it.
county council approved it. I mean, it's not
Right,
approved
these
until
right
the
now,
county council approves
right
it.
now, we're making a recommendation, so it would be, and we're recommending commitments too, so.
Yeah, they could line item it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the motion is send a favorable recommendation to the county council with written commitments 1, 3, 4, and 5, and adding that they can renew their special use at year 5.
Required to renew,
Required to renew their special use at year 5.
yes.
So that's a motion and a second. Okay.
That was how both the person moving and the person seconding understood it, is that correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Mr. Schaefer?
I'll say yes.
Mr. Velman?
No.
Mr. Roush?
I have a question. I think it is of Brandy.
Okay.
If we send this favorable to the county council, and does the county council have the ability to amend it further? Like, for instance, if they were to make it this longevity issue 3 years or 10 years, or remove it, do they have that ability?
I'm sure they do. We just make a recommendation.
Yeah,
We're just recommending.
Yeah, we're just making yeah.
I
Well,
gotta
I
check the
understand, but
exact
I-
wording of the statute. There's something about what happens if.
I was in that last meeting, and they were really hung up on some things, and it made me realize that sometimes we're not just kicking the ball and letting somebody else pick it up from scratch. They really weigh very heavily on what we send to them, very heavily.
Yep.
Are you still looking, Brandy?
Yes, I'm looking.
Okay. Sorry for the hard question.
Can we make the state live to that too? Is that too?
So the special use one is a little different from the one about rezonings. With the one about rezonings, it has provisions about they can amend, if they amend stuff or whatever, they deny it or whatever, it bounces back and forth. For special uses, you literally are just making a recommendation. They can decide what they want to do with
They
it.
just have to take it in, they don't even
Oh.
have to take it into consideration, right?
Nope.
What matters is the time that they do it in, most. As long as they act within their time period, they can.
Okay, so to clarify, they can change it if they want.
Mm-hmm.
I believe so.
Okay, then I vote yes.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Devon?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
But, with that being said, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, will send a favorable recommendation to the county council based on the written commitments 1, 3, 4, and 5,
And
and
the additional expiration renewal period commitment.
I'm getting there.
Yes.
I got it right here.
Just making sure.
And with the requirement that they renew their special use in 5 years, and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you.
Okay. Now we got,
What's that? Oh, yeah. Is he asleep?
he's still here? Probably went to work. Probably went back to work. I did find out now.
We're not done, Dan.
Appreciate your work.
We're not done.
We're not done. Sorry.
Yeah, they can't talk. They're not finished.
Okay. Findings
For
of
the crowd, if you're going to chat with people, we'd appreciate you
Talking
do
during
that
other people's
in the
testimony.
hall.
Can they talk outside, please? I found it very rude that the audience was talking during other people's testimony, so just note that for next time, if you would quiet the crowd down when other people are having testimony, please.
Noted.
Thank you. I found it very rude.
Findings of facts from January 10th.
I make a motion to, unless Donnie has any, I didn't see any typos or any problems. I make a motion to approve the findings of facts from the January 10th, 2024 meeting.
Donnie Ritzmond, second.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Feldman?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Devon?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes. Minutes from October 11th.
Donnie Ritzmond, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the October 11th, 2023 meeting.
Joe Velman, I will second.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
No, he's gone. So, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I think that was the, oh crap moment was, if I get out of here, I don't have to make them do that.
I got nothing else, if anybody else.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
How many months you get to serve?